You're not playing to win, you're playing not to lose.
Right.
In business, if you're playing not to lose, you're going to lose.
So I know racing is fun for you, but you've mentioned there's a lot of analogy of racing and applies to other things in life. Can you share about that?
There's another thing we learn in racing that applies to business, and I think applies to life. I had to learn to remove the word control from my vernacular. If you're not a little bit out of control, you're not trying hard enough.
And that seems to tie back to your story about racing, is you stopped playing to not lose, and then you started to play to win and get into that flow state.
Because we set the floor, we protected the floor, we set a vision of where we wanted to be, and we got rid of everything that was a commodity and said there's 3 things that we can do better than anybody else. We're only going to do those things.
Welcome to Viva La Visionary. I'm Coach Bob, the host of Viva La Visionary. Very excited to have my good friend, Dr. Mark Young. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is.
So I started this to interview not just entrepreneurs, but visionaries. And you are the epitome of a visionary. And that's a compliment, by the way. We'll talk about that. You own several companies, ad agencies, real estate. You've written 4 books. You're a doctor of psychology and neuroscience. Hopefully I got that right. You do many different things. How do you keep it all together?
Well, the first thing, Bob, I would say is I created a universe to fit my mind.
Okay.
So I have a brain that needs to jump from things to thing all the time.
Right.
So for a lot of people operate in this world where I want to do this thing and I can't do anything else until that thing.
Right.
For me, is I'm going to do this thing for an hour and I need to do a completely different thing an hour from now.
Right.
And so I built a world that accommodates that.
I love that.
Because I'm unemployable.
Right. Well, and I know you're a big fan of Strategic Coach, and he talks about focus free and buffer day. Do you adhere to the full day, or do you go hour by hour?
The freedom, focus, buffer day thing, we probably follow an 80-20 rule.
Right.
So 80% of the day is a buffer day, 80% of the day is a focus day.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
I'm getting better at the free days. So in Dan Sullivan's world, a free day is 24 hours of not checking email and
Correct.
not doing anything.
Right.
It's still hard for me to not dip into email or answer a client's text message or do something like that, but I'm getting better at it.
Right.
Racing days, I'm better at it because I'm distracted.
Well, and I was going to go there. A lot of visionaries have a hard time taking free days and living life beyond the vine, as we say. I don't think you have that problem. So tell me about some of the things you do when you're not working. I know racing is one of them.
I am a pro race car driver.
Right.
I race in, I'm also an instructor. So I teach and race in something called NASA, and then I race in a group called the World Racing League. So if anybody's heard of NASCAR and IMSA, we're IMSA light.
Okay.
So we're not quite at the IMSA NASCAR level. We're the level below it.
Right.
And so we race, I do about 9 races a year.
Okay.
So it's not overwhelming,
Right.
but it does take up 9 weekends.
So it's the whole weekend, right?
Yeah, 3 days.
So I know racing is fun for you, but you've mentioned there's a lot of analogy of racing and applies to other things in life. What can you share about that?
It does, and I use racing as a metaphor in my new book that we can talk about.
Yeah.
First off, you find very few left-leaning people in the racing world.
Okay.
And there's a reason for it. Because it's a capitalistic endeavor. There's one winner. There's a series of losers.
Right.
You take your best shot. You invest the money in the car. You condition. You do everything you can do. If the car gets wrecked, that's your problem. You pay for it. There's nobody else going to pay for you.
Right.
We burn copious amounts of tires, barrels of fuel,
Right.
and oil. So it tends to be a very entrepreneurial world. And in the world I'm in, the racing I'm in. So I would really be what's called a gentleman racer.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not my career.
Right.
And it's never going to be my career. You know, McLaren and Ferrari are not going to call me and offer me a full-time driving gig. You tend to find the people who are racing in these leagues to be entrepreneurs and lawyers and accountants and doctors and people who have made a lot of money and now they can indulge their fantasy to be a race car driver.
Right.
Quite honestly. But it is very much like entrepreneurship. And I'll give you a story. I was talking with a client one day, and I'm on Zoom, and I was 2 weeks away from entering my first pro race, which was going to qualify me to get a Guinness World Record. Now, I didn't need to win the race. I needed to complete the race.
Right.
Set that aside. I'm talking with a client, and I'm getting frustrated with the client. I finally say to the client, look, you're not playing to win, you're playing not to lose.
Right.
And in business, if you're playing not to lose, you're going to lose.
Right.
We got off the call, and then I said to myself, damn it. I just convicted myself because I was getting ready for a race where I was playing not to lose.
Right.
I actually wasn't going in the race to win.
Interesting.
I was going in the race to complete.
Right.
So I called the rest of my team. Change plans, guy. What are we doing? We're going to win. And the warning, and everybody says, well, keep in mind, you try to win this race, first pro race you've ever been in, you try to win it, you might not complete it.
Right.
And I'm like, but who are we?
And why are we doing this, right?
Right. Are we winners, or are we just chasing certificates to hang on a wall?
Love it.
So we decided we were going to go for the win. Now, I'm happy to report I got the Guinness World Record and won that race. But it took a mind shift. It took a shift in thinking.
Right.
And there's another thing we learn in racing that applies to business. And I think applies to life, to be honest with you. I had to learn to remove the word control from my vernacular. And there's a famous quote from Mario Andretti that says, if you're not a little bit out of control, you're not trying hard enough.
Right.
Well, in a race car, if your race car feels like it's on rails, you're not going that fast.
Right.
The race car needs to be allowed to get loose. The race car needs to be allowed to be a little bit out of control.
Interesting.
If that race car is not a little out of control, you're not at the edge of traction and at the edge of speed.
Right.
You're playing it safe. Now, keep in mind in that race car, every once in a while, when you decide to let that car get loose, something bad's going to happen. Hopefully, you just run off the track and you spin out in some grass. You don't hit a wall, you don't hit somebody. But if you're looking for the edge, occasionally you find it.
Right. Right.
So I had to learn to get control out of my vocabulary.
Right.
And I replaced the word control with influence. So the key was learning that I really can't control everything the car does.
Right.
And I certainly can't control everything else that everyone else is doing on that racetrack.
Right.
But I can have a lot of influence on how this race is going to turn out. The same applies to business. I can't control the economy. I can't control what's going on in Iran. I can't control fuel prices. I can't even control everybody that works for me.
Right.
But I can influence the outcome. And that's been the big mind shift. And racing has actually brought me that mind shift.
It's such a because I definitely agree. What goes on up here affects here and affects this, and so I want to talk about several different things. But also, you are doing what you love in racing and in a lot of things in life. And I know you've actually even gotten business from racing, correct? Which I love. So you're off playing.
A racetrack is a racetrack at my level is no different than being a member of an exclusive private country club.
Right.
In fact, some of the racetracks are country clubs. They're literally country clubs.
Right.
For guys with supercars.
Well, it's interesting because I coach visionaries, and a lot of them are so controlling and in their business. And as soon as I'm successful, then I'm going to go have fun. And it's like, no, go have fun. And a lot of them are like, I don't even know what that means.
And here's the thing. This is kind of a Dan Sullivan thing. This is kind of your thing. When you get on a racetrack, the first thing that happens on a racetrack, if you're good and you pay attention, you're 200 yards down the track, and your brain goes in the flow state. Every other thought has to remove from your mind.
Right.
I actually remember one time in my now 9 years of racing where I thought about business while I was on track, and I looked up and I was heading toward a wall at 165 miles an hour,
Right.
and barely saved the car, and realized, okay, I can never let that happen again.
Right.
The racetrack puts you in flow state and puts you in this single-minded space.
Right.
Everything else goes away. There's no phone ringing. There's no text messages. There's no P&Ls to look at. It's just, I need to win this race and stay alive with what I'm doing. And the more you do that and the more you learn how to put yourself in flow state, not only the more do you get to clean the cobwebs out of your brain, but you learn how to put yourself in flow state when you're at work and when you're doing other things.
Well, that was my next question. How do you get into flow state personally when you're not racing? Because I get it with the thrill and the intensity of not crashing. So when you get up in the morning and you're making calls, how do you get into that flow state?
By staying within your unique ability.
Love it.
So, Bob, you know me. Mm-hmm. I'm not good at everything, but I'm really good at a few things.
All right.
That's the sandbox I need to stay in.
Right.
So when we look at everything we do, and Dan Sullivan has an exercise we do where we list everything that we're great at and that we love doing. Then list everything that you're good at but you're not crazy about. Then list everything that you suck at and you hate doing.
Right.
Stop doing all that stuff.
Right. Right.
Give that stuff to somebody else who likes it.
Right.
Now, take as many of the B ring, things you're good at but you don't really like doing, and try to get rid of as many of those things as you can.
Right.
Now go to the A ring and spend your time doing the things that excite you and energize you and motivate you.
Right.
And find other people who are good at doing the other thing.
Oh, that's very inspiring. I appreciate that. So tell me about your new book. And I've got questions of your other ones, but your new one is?
So this book here is the 27 Unbreakable Rules.
Okay.
So, Bob, as you know, my ad agency is Jekyll and Hyde Labs.
Yep.
And what we do is challenge your brand consumer packaged goods. So things you buy at Home Depot, Walmart, Target, CVS, Costco, whatever the case is.
Right.
We know, and you're not P&G. You're the company that has to compete with P&G. We're the best at it. We've built 250 brands. We're building brands literally every day right now. So one of the things that we've done in our firm, and you and I haven't spoken in a while. One of the things I did with our company about a year and a half ago, I decided I was going to take everything in a company and strip out everything that was a commodity.
Nice.
Anything that people can go anywhere and get, we're not going to do it anymore.
Right.
So we literally only do 3 things. That's all we do.
Nice.
And we're better at those 3 things than anybody. And you can't get those 3 things anyplace else. So I spend many, many hours every week talking to entrepreneurs. And that's one of the things we decided. We're only going to work with entrepreneurial-led companies.
Awesome.
Because I don't fit in big corporations.
Right.
We're dealing with people who have their own money in it. People who are their own visionary.
Right. And passion.
And they have a passion. And I have a passion to help them. So I have all these conversations. Well, there came a point where my team and I, Justin, Michelle, and I were like, geez, let's go see if we can find a book someplace where we can give people a book to say, okay, here's the basic things you need to know. Well, I found out no one ever wrote that book in the world of consumer packaged goods.
Right.
So what I did is I took the entire world of consumer packaged goods, and this book is basically aimed at, let's say, a company that is starting to make a product, or maybe they're on Amazon. And we took, what are the 27 things that people need to know in order to be on the shelf at a Walmart and a Walgreens and be successful and be making money, all those things. So this is literally what this book is.
Nice.
It is literally a manual of how do I launch a successful product in brick and mortar retail. And by the way, part of the surprise that people get out of this book is everybody thinks the internet's the big deal. I really need to focus on Amazon. But 80% of all consumer products are still sold out of a brick and mortar store.
Really? Wow.
So if you live in the Amazon world and you have a good Amazon business, that's great. But you're a big fish in a little pond.
Right.
Because the big pond's over at Walmart.
Interesting.
So we are the exponential engine for consumer packaged goods. And the forward in this is written by Dr. Ben Hardy.
Oh, awesome.
And Ben Hardy's a dear friend, and he's such a smart guy, such a good guy. Ben has a new book out called The Science of Scaling.
Right.
And it's amazing. He had asked me to critique it and give him some input, and I wrote him notes on it and stuff. And we ended up coming back, and I was talking about what his book was doing for me, and he ended up changing the first chapter and made the first chapter partly about me. And the reason Ben said that was, he goes, I realized as we're creating and we're writing this book on how to exponentially grow your business 10x in 36 months,
Right.
he goes, I realized for people who make consumer packaged goods, you're the who.
Nice.
You're the exponential engine
Right.
that will take them there. So working with him has been terrific, and really taking the company, and I'm excited for you to learn more about this.
Yeah.
Really taking the company and said, we're just not going to do this stuff anymore. And I gave you, when I said we're going to do that, one of our account executives, Justin, we had a client that now didn't meet the criteria. And our criteria was, we're going to set a floor, and we're not going to go below this floor.
Right.
This is the minimum that you can be to be a client here. And if you can't meet that minimum, I'm sorry, we're not the place for you.
Right.
And I set that floor, and I'm like, this is it. And then our staff went through and said, okay, we have these clients who are below the floor. And what are we going to do with them? I'm like, we're either going to convert them or we're going to help them move on.
Right.
So we set up a Zoom call with some of those clients. And my team is sitting there, and I'm telling the client, and I'll tell you what I did. I told the client, I am so sorry, but we've been giving you bad advice. And the reason we've been giving you bad advice was because we've been trying to meet you where you are.
Right.
And not telling you where you need to be. So I'm going to tell you where you need to be if you want to be successful. And if that doesn't work for you, completely understand
Right.
that you're not ready for this. But you also need to understand that we can't do our best work for you if we can't put you in the place where we know we succeed for clients.
Right.
And they stepped up.
Yep.
And by the way, my team is like, what just happened? Because they were betting me, there's no way in the world this client's going to do that.
Right.
I'm like,
We can't lose this client, but if they aren't
there's
target
no
market,
way they're going to do it.
Right.
And I'm like, then if they can't do it, they'll have to leave. But I'm telling you, if we present it properly and we believe in our floor,
Right.
and we believe that we can do amazing things for these people if they step up to our level, then most of them will. And it happened.
Right.
And by the way, and we got rid of some people.
And that's okay. Right.
It was okay because we have now replaced them with a lineup of clients that are 10 times to 100 times bigger
Right.
than what those clients were.
That's awesome. Good for you. That's a courageous move that a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid to do. And yet, otherwise, we're just lowering the playing field and taking our edge out of it. So good for you.
And it required a year of losing money
Right.
to do it.
Yep.
I mean,
That's courageous.
I'm going to be honest with you. We were hemorrhaging money for a year of doing this.
Right.
And everybody's like, can't do this, including my own wife. I'm like, got to stick with me here. I've got a plan.
Right.
And we're going to see it on the other end. And then it's like, wow, what happened? And it was one of those things like exponential math. So it's like, put a penny in the bank today and 2 pennies tomorrow and 4 pennies. And all of a sudden in 3 months, you're a billionaire.
Right.
It was one of those things where, as a rule, people don't see early exponential math because brains don't work well around small numbers.
Right.
But then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, what's happened?
Right. It's compounding.
Yeah.
Right.
What took place here? Why do we have this many clients?
Right.
And they're all spending millions. How did this happen? Because we set the floor, we protected the floor, we set a vision of where we wanted to be, and we got rid of everything that was a commodity and said there's 3 things that we can do better than anybody else. We're only going to do those things.
Right. And that seems to tie back to your story about racing, is you stopped playing to not lose, and then you started to play to win and get into that flow state.
Not only that, but I'm an endurance racer. So in endurance racing, we race anywhere from 4 to 24 hours.
Right. Wow.
And we rotate drivers. That's how I race. Why do I race that way? Because I'm building a universe that fits me. Okay, I'm not a 20-year-old racing phenom.
Right.
I became a pro 30, 40 years after other people have retired from racing. Endurance racing isn't about how crazy you are.
Right.
Endurance racing is about how smart you are.
Love it. Very cool.
So endurance racing fits me, and we win a lot.
Right.
Because we know how to prep, we know how to pit, and we know how to strategize to win. When other people are trying to win off of their sheer effort, we're winning off of preparation.
And your business is endurance, not just short-term wins.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Everything we do is about the long term.
Right. Very cool. So what are the 3 things that you are unique at that no one else can do in your ad agency?
So what we do is, 1, we know how to get products into all the major brick and mortar retailers.
Right.
And we know how to do that better than anybody else, and it is damn near impossible to even get a meeting with Walmart.
Right.
But we know how to do it. The second thing is, we know how to take products that are in Walmart or Walgreens or CVS or Home Depot, and we know how to blow them up so consumers buy them by the millions. The third thing we do is we know how to create your story and tell your story and build your universe. Why do you exist?
Right.
Every brand we work with now, Bob, and things are radically different. Every brand we work with now, the first question we ask them is, why do you exist? And don't tell me it's because you want to make money.
Right.
Because consumer doesn't care that you want to get rich. I want to know, why do you exist in my universe as a consumer, and why should I care?
Right.
And that's the other thing we do. We help craft that story. Those are the 3 things we do.
Awesome.
Now, how do we do them? We have different tools for how we do it,
Right.
but those are the 3 things.
I love it. So I know you have a desire to learn about health, teach about health, practice health. So how does that tie into your business, or does it? Because I know I lean on you for not just going to the doctor and taking some prescribed drug that's going to have side effects. So does that tie in, or how does that tie in? Because I'm infatuated by that, and you've helped me a ton, by the way.
Health's been, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So health's been a long time thing. And I'm a PhD. My son is now a doctor of functional medicine.
Awesome.
And we work together. So I have Jekyll, Hyde. He has the Rise agency in Florida. We have offices in each other's offices. He does all the digital. We do all the traditional. And one of the big advantages we have is, because of that passion, and both of us speak around the country on longevity and things.
Right.
although health, beauty, cosmetic, over-the-counter drugs, things like that are not the only thing we do, it's a big part of what we do. So one of the big advantages that we have is when a client comes through the door and I've invented this supplement, I've invented this over-the-counter drug, we don't have a learning curve.
Right.
So most ad agencies are filled with a bunch of creatives. And, well, now we've created, I'm going to give you this as an example. Client called me last week and he goes, I've got something I want to put on the market. I'm sure you've never heard of it. I go, what's it called? He goes, it's called acromantia. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's kind of a fairly rare bacteria that does not live in most people's guts due to standard American diet. If you supplement it for about a period of 2 months and continue to supplement it, you can start to grow acromantia, which will then release natural GLP-1 into the system, helping people lose weight without having to use an injection. The guy's like, oh.
Who am I dealing with? Right.
So it's like, okay, yeah, I guess you've heard of acromantia. He goes, and he said, I've never heard of anybody ever heard of it before. I'm like, I've been using it for 5 years.
Right.
So we have those advantages. The other advantage we have is a lot of times people will bring a health item to us, and we quickly tell them other things their product can do that they didn't know about.
Right. Interesting. And why do people call, I hear things like that, it's alternative when most of that stuff is more natural? That's it.
Well, alternative is anything that isn't used in a hospital or used in a Medicare and insurance billing code.
Right. Okay.
So that's now called alternative. The flip side, not everything that's natural is safe.
Right.
There's lots of stuff heroin can be natural, but there's lots of things that are natural. Doesn't mean they're safe and they're good for you.
Right.
But what it does mean is simply this. We were sold a bill of goods back in the 30s. And that bill of goods we were sold was really generated by the petroleum industry, who became part and parcel to the drug industry. So remember, prior to, I think it was 1934, there was no FDA. Doctors compounded their medications.
Right.
And then came along the FDA and Big Pharma, which was tied with all of the big petrochemical companies.
Yeah.
And we were convinced, as humans, that we were these chemical beings. That the only thing our body understood was put in a chemical and there's a chemical reaction.
Right.
The reality is we are quantum beings.
Right.
We respond to molecules. We respond to sound. We respond to light therapy. We respond to, like I said, sound therapy. We respond to psychoneuroimmunology. All of these different things. Yes, all of these different things matter. And we now have to start thinking of the body as a quantum being, not this chemical reactor.
Right. Love it.
And that's where modern medicine falls apart. Because there tends to be, when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
If you're a surgeon, everything's fixed with a scalpel. If you're a physician, everything's fixed with a prescription pad. If you're a radiologist, everything is fixed with nuclear power.
Right.
This is what you know, and that is how you do things. We need to take a step above that and start saying, okay, this is my body.
Right.
The other mistake people make is they get too impressed with people that have doctor in front of their name.
Right.
Myself included. I have doctor in front of my name. So, you're a doctor. I have to pay attention to you. The reality is most people that are doctors, especially in the medical profession, and including many of my friends that are MDs, they refer to themselves as mechanics. My cardiology buddy, who's one of my co-drivers, he calls himself a plumber for people because he's an interventionary cardiologist.
Right.
And he refers to electrophysiology, cardiology as electricians for people.
Right.
And he'll literally say, well, no, you need a plumber? No, that heart problem needs an electrician.
Huh.
And that's what he does. He fixes the plumbing in your heart.
Right.
But if you turn your health over to him, and this is what people do, I'm going to abdicate my agency over my own body.
Yep.
And I'm going to hand it to this guy or woman who has doctor in front of their name. Guess what? They're not in your body.
Right.
They don't know everything. And if they're insurance-based medicine, they have 6 minutes to deal with you.
Right.
And that includes seeing you, diagnosing you, treating you, and writing up the notes. Because that's all Medicare and insurance companies going to pay for today.
Right.
Well, guess what? I can't get to know you in six minutes. You and I had a health conversation last week about a simple cosmetic thing that took us 20 minutes
Right.
just to have a conversation about it.
Right.
Try having that conversation with an MD. You can't.
No. That's why I like talking to you, because you ask great questions, you know a lot, and then you suggest natural things that make sense. I really appreciate that.
But you remember, even in that conversation, I also gave you surgical alternatives.
Sure.
Because,
And then now it's up to us.
because
Right.
surgery is viable.
Right.
And prescription medication is viable. And so are lots of other things
Right.
viable. So to me, it is, what's the risk reward? What's the easiest thing I can do first? And what's the potential downside? If the potential downside is very little side effects, or I'm not fighting cancer and I don't have time, then why wouldn't I go through a series of natural or organic or mechanical treatments before I get into things like pharmaceuticals and surgeries?
Right.
And
The
I wanna
silver bullet.
Right, and I want to remind people, there is no such thing as a pharmaceutical without a side effect.
Right. Interesting.
There is no human being who was ever born that has a Prozac deficiency. There is no one out there with an oxycodone deficiency.
Huh.
These are foreign molecules.
That have side effects. Right.
In order to be able to have the effect you are after, there is a dark side. And that dark side manifests itself differently in every patient because every patient has a different genetic makeup.
Right.
So what happens to me isn't what happens to you.
Well, it's interesting. I haven't been sleeping well and I snore. So my insurance covered CPAP. It was a horrible 3 months. I know it works for some people, and that's wonderful. And I made the decision, and my wife is a nutritionist, as you know, but I was like, you know what? It's time to lose a couple pounds. It's spring, so I'm on day 34 of no sugar, no flour, no dairy, no alcohol.
So you got rid of white food.
Right, exactly.
White food and formaldehyde.
And I know that that's real. In 3 months, I've lost 16 pounds.
And the snoring went away.
I'm not snoring.
Correct.
And I was at a wedding the other night, and I used to be like, well, I need to have a drink. And I drank probably 25 cups of water, and I felt so good. It's amazing. But again, I think even I hadn't thought about this, but I'm advocating for myself and taking control of things for myself.
So when men gain weight, especially men over 40, 50, you start gaining weight, one of the places you gain a lot of weight is in the neck.
Right.
And you know that because your shirt got tighter.
Right.
That closes off the airway.
Right.
It reduces the airway. So you make a great example. I go to the doctor. Doctor, I'm snoring. We're going to give you a sleep study.
Right.
So they could bring you into the clinic or they put you on something called a watch pad.
Right.
Take your watch pad home. We look at you. Oh, you scored a 16 on the watch pad.
Right.
You're having sleep apnea. The watch pad says you had 22 events through the night where you stopped breathing. We have to fix that.
Yep.
We're going to fix that by hooking you up to a machine so that you feel like Darth Vader when you go to sleep.
Right.
The doctor could have said, Bob, your airway's restricted because you've put on 20 pounds or 30 pounds.
Right.
Let's get that weight off of you, and let's put you on another watch pad and see if you still have any of these events.
Right.
That would have been the right answer. Except I can write you a prescription for the machine. And as a doctor, I know I fixed it. I don't need you to cooperate and stay on the diet.
Right.
I know I fixed it. You're out the door. We're moving on.
Right.
And this is the problem with modern medicine, because the problem is when we talk about my son being a doctor, and his type of doctor, when we think about these doctors, typical doctor is treating symptoms.
Right.
Okay? A functional doctor treats disease. So a cardiologist, an internist, Bob, your blood pressure's been running about 147 over 90. We have to get that below 120. I'm going to put you on this blood pressure med. I want you to take this twice a day for the rest of your life.
Right.
What the doctor didn't say was, well, Bob, did you always have high blood pressure? Did you have high blood pressure when you were young? No, I don't think so. Let's find out why you have high blood pressure.
Right.
Now, by the way, maybe I'll put you on that blood pressure med because I don't want you to be in the 140s, but I'm going to put you on it temporarily while we find the root cause.
Right.
Not take this blood pressure med for the rest of your life.
Right.
We look at the average person now that's around 55 or 60 years old, and their average American is on 6 to 8 prescriptions.
All with side effects that probably have side effects with each other.
Well, when you watch television commercials now, you see commercials selling drugs that are just there to attenuate the side effects of other drugs.
Right. That's awesome. Very interesting. Well, I know that's a whole side subject, but I appreciate your commitment to learning about it and teaching, and for us to advocate for ourselves. That's awesome.
I'm going to answer a question you asked, and that is, how does that fit in with what I do?
Right.
What fits in with what I do, Bob, is what I want to do for the rest of my life is alleviate suffering. Whether that is suffering from health, whether that is suffering from addiction, whether that is suffering in my business because I need to figure out how to be in retail, I need to be able to sell more products, I like solving people's problems that solve their pain, that solves their suffering. That's what I want to do, and that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
That's awesome. Good for you. Switching gears a little bit, I know you've written a book on hypnotherapy. So tell me about that briefly, and how do you use it, and what's the benefit of it? And is it a good thing? You know, like sometimes when I hear of it, it's like, oh, I can convince you to do something. I mean, so it's not necessarily for evil, but tell me about hypnotherapy.
So the book I wrote was called Hypnotizing.
Right.
And it was how to use hypnotic language and neurolinguistics programming creating advertising. We use a lot of these principles in creating our creative.
Right.
And the reason is simply this. Hypnosis is the skill and art of using words and images to make an immediate change in human behavior.
Right.
What is the purpose of an ad?
Change behavior, right?
Right, to use words and images to make an immediate change of behavior.
Right.
So it occurred to me, it's like, oh, I need to become a therapist. I need to figure out how to just do this in mass.
Huh.
So that's kind of the reason behind it, but I ended up with a bunch of skills where I can help people. So hypnotherapy is very simple. Let me give you, first off, you hear people say, oh, I can't be hypnotized. It's not real, and my brain's too powerful to be hypnotized. Right. So the first thing I say to people when they say they can't be hypnotized, I say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. What do you mean? My brain's so strong I can't be hypnotized. No, that's actually not how it works, because hypnotherapy is actually something that can only be done by people who have strong minds. So I'm really sad to hear that you don't have that ability. So now all of a sudden they want to be hypnotized.
Right.
Here's what hypnosis is. Psychotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy are great modalities in the right setting.
Right.
But they're not the right setting for everything. So if I have a problem from my past that was created over months or years of my childhood,
Right.
then probably going to a therapist for months or years to resolve it probably makes sense. If I have a trauma, a PTSD type trauma that was created by an event.
Right.
So when we think of PTSD is a memory that the synapses have cemented and neurologically bound to adrenaline.
Right.
So a memory that is neuroassociated to adrenaline. So every time I have this memory, adrenaline floods into the body.
Right.
Okay? So I'm afraid of flying.
Right.
As soon as I step into an airport, here comes
Physically,
the adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
Here comes the adrenaline, here comes all this stuff. And here's the reality. Fear of flying is irrational.
Right.
Fear of spiders is irrational. All these fears that people have are not rational. If fear of flying is irrational, how many years of talk therapy can we do where I can finally get you to agree with me? I'm not going to get you to agree with me that it's rational because I can already sit down with you and tell you about aerodynamics.
Right.
I can tell you how lift works. I can tell you how camber on a wing works. I can tell you how you can take the wings and touch them each other and the plane will stay together. It doesn't matter. You're irrational.
Right.
So what we do in hypnotherapy is simply this. I want you to think of these behaviors as an app on your phone. So you have this app on your phone, and the app is all glitchy and won't work right. So we have two options. You could go open the app and look for the line of code. Let's say there's 5,000 lines of code in that app.
Right.
What happened? The app got corrupted, right? So we could go line by line by line by line and look for the code that got corrupted. That's cognitive therapy.
Okay.
Or we could delete the app and reload it.
Nice.
Hypnotherapy is delete the app and load it incorrectly. So if your fear is flying, I'm not going to hypnotize you and make you all of a sudden love flying. I'm going to just delete your fear of flying.
Right. That's awesome.
And reload a rational behavior.
Right.
Which is flying is a safer form of transportation than automobiles.
Right. Statistically, right?
Right. But I'm not going to convince you of it. I'm just going to delete it.
Right.
And put the right command in.
Right. Well, verbiage reflects consciousness. So even if that's verbiage in my head, that's going to affect me. So I love that. I get it. Very cool. So shifting gears a little bit, a couple other things I want to cover. We talk about as we grow our business, it's evolution. And if we hit the ceiling of complexity, we need revolution to bust through. I believe we've hit the ceiling of complexity as a society. What's your attitude about how the time we're living in and the opportunity? Are you optimistic or pessimistic of this time living? I think I know the answer, but
all right. So if you're asking me whether I'm a buyer or a seller of humanity,
right.
I'm a buyer.
Right.
I was at Strategic Coach recently, and I brought up this phrase to people, and all of a sudden, everybody's hand went up, and everybody said, yes, that's how I feel. And my comment was, we're now living in an age where you wake up excited for what's new and afraid of what you'll miss.
Right.
You have this excitement and fear all of a sudden because the world is moving exponentially.
It's amazing. Right.
And here's part of the problem, Bob. Human brains, just like AI, are pattern recognition systems.
Right.
So AI learns just like a human learns. So how do we learn? We learn by guessing. Or as Dan Sullivan says, everything we do is a guess and a bet.
Huh.
I'm going to guess I've got a new idea. I'm going to bet some money that I'm right.
Right.
We work in this pattern recognition system. So whenever we see something novel, we look back over all of our years and life experience to put it into context. The problem is you have nothing in your past that will put what is happening today into context. So you can't solve the problem.
Right.
When you cannot put something into context in your brain, fear replaces it.
Right.
This is the reason why so many people came up with conspiracy theories that George W. Bush actually blew up the Twin Towers.
Right.
Because people couldn't put into context that it's as easy as a bunch of guys sneaking into a couple of airplanes and flying my airplane into a building. Because that's not a world I want to live in.
Right.
And that's not a world that my brain has a history to go back and figure out.
Can't comprehend it. Right?
So I want to try to figure out a different reason. That's what's happening right now. And by the way, this is happening all over the place. It's happening to entrepreneurs. Talk to most entrepreneurs. 78% of them are going to tell you they're using AI in their business. Less than 25% of them actually know how.
Right.
And I've been meeting with some of my own people who we're training now on AI. And we're understanding they're not getting it yet.
Right.
Because you keep looking backward to try to explain how to do this. It's like, no, you need to look into the future and then look backward to explain this.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. We're going to see a massive shift in humanity. The example I use, Bob, is the turn of the 19th century.
Okay.
Or the turn of the 20th century, the year 1900.
Right.
In the 1800s, the majority of American employment was in agriculture. And then somebody invented this machine called a combine.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the combine could do the work of 50, 60 farmhands. And the farm workers protested.
Right.
And they put up picket lines. And they would sneak out at night and they would try to burn the combine down and destroy the combine machine wherever it was parked. And they would cut down trees and put them across the road so the combine driver couldn't get to the next farm. This is the Bernie Sanders of the world. Bernie Sanders is right now demanding that we create laws limiting technology.
Right.
Because somehow he thinks government can stop technology.
It's rolling. It's
Which
here.
it can't.
Right.
The second thing is these people went home. They never worked again. An entire generation went home from the farm and never had another job. And their children went to the factories.
Right.
They left the farm and they went to the city and they worked on assembly lines. We're going to see a generation of people out of work.
Right.
And they're going to go home and they're never going to work again. And their children are going to learn to adapt to a robotic and an AI world.
Right.
But many people are never going to work. Right now, Bob, 9% of America makes their living driving a vehicle.
Wow. Right.
Now, have you been to Scottsdale or Phoenix recently?
No, but I've heard you can ride without a driver, yes.
If you're in Phoenix or Scottsdale, there's almost no cab driver and no Uber driver because Waymo controls the entire city. There's at least 2 driverless cars stopped at every red light that you ever pull into that city.
Right. Wow.
I mean, literally, you cannot drive or walk the streets of Scottsdale without having Waymos flying past you with no one driving it. And they have a 93% better safety record than drivers.
Right. They're not, the driverless cars aren't checking their cell phone while they're driving.
They can.
Right, that's true.
They can. And guess what else? They don't get tired.
Right.
They have 360-degree vision. The car is actually looking in every direction all the
Constantly,
time.
right.
And here's the other thing, the big thing on self-driving cars. My wife uses a Tesla and lets it drive her door to door. Computers, because a Tesla is not a car. A Tesla is a robot you sit in.
Right.
Computers don't get road rage.
Interesting.
Computers don't get angry.
Right.
So when you cut off a Tesla, it just hits the brakes.
Right. It doesn't flip you off and try to
It
cut you off.
just hits the brakes and it moves the car a rational amount of room behind the car that just cut it off, and the event is over.
Right.
It doesn't try to get even.
Right. That's awesome.
So 9% of the world is going to be looking for a job
Right.
because Waymo, Tesla, Uber self-driving. These are all going to replace all the cabs. They're going to replace all the Uber drivers. And we're already testing autonomous trucks.
Wow.
So why do I want to hire truck drivers when I can have a semi-truck that has no accidents and can run 24 hours a day?
Right.
Not 8 hours a day and then has to go through a sleep shift. And these jobs are going to happen all over the place.
Right.
You look in our world, in the advertising world, and accounting, legal, advertising, all of these professional services. The biggest area, if you look at the unemployment numbers right now, the biggest hole in employment right now is current college graduate. That's the group that has the hardest time finding a job.
Interesting.
Now, why is that? Because those are beginning workers. When we think about AI bots in the office setting, the AI is brilliant when managed properly, is brilliant at doing 80% of the work.
Right.
A human needs to do the first 10. That's the ingenuity and the creativity that only a human can do.
Right.
A human then needs to assign the work to a robot. The robot then delivers the work back to the human, and it's the human that looks at the work and decides what's right, what's wrong, and what's the best way to apply this.
Right.
So we don't need entry-level employees that work on the 80, because the 80 is where you learn.
Right.
We don't need people to do 80. We need people to do 10 and 10.
Right.
So what happens now is companies like mine, we're not looking for entry-level people out of college. We're looking for people who can think.
Right.
So my prediction is, this sounds kind of mean, AI is going to make smart people a lot smarter.
Right.
It's going to make some dumb people a lot dumber.
Yep. And we can make a choice. Yeah, are we going to roll with it or not? Because it's
Sure.
here. Yeah.
There's some studies out right now that show that if you hand off writing your emails to your AI assistant for 1 month, you substantially lose your ability to spell and construct sentences properly. So if you're going to use the AI to do your job, you're going to become an idiot.
Right.
If you use the AI as a collaborator to level you up,
Right.
now you've got something.
Right. Interesting. So shifting gears, and I've got a couple other questions. What is your biggest thing that you've learned in being an entrepreneur, being a visionary, that you can share with the rest of the visionaries who are listening? Because I know you've learned a lot.
So I had a doorman, a security guard at the gate of my Florida home. And I live in a very expensive premier building in Florida, not hiding that. And as a young guy who we've got staff around and all that, and he's the guard at the gate. And he comes up to me one day and says, "Dr. Young, can I talk to you for a minute?" I'm like, "Yeah, what do you need?" He goes, "How did you get to be you?" He goes, I want to live your life. How did you do this?" And I'm like, and I get asked that question a lot.
Right.
And I'll tell you where I get asked that question the most is in gas stations.
Because of your car.
Because I drive a McLaren and I drive a Ferrari.
Right.
And I pull up and I pump gas and young people come over and like, "What do you do? How did you get this?"
Right.
And I'm always happy to engage them because I believe in entrepreneurship, and I believe that there's no reason outside of some genuine handicap where we should have a social system and a social network to care for those people. But outside of something profound, Bob, there's no reason why anyone in America can't live a great, abundant life.
Right.
There's no reason. I drive down the street every day and see opportunity. Wow, somebody could make a fortune if they did that, if they did this.
Right.
I'll give you an example I give people. If somebody took a pickup truck and a 24-foot ladder and went to my neighborhood, went door to door and said, "Would you like your gutters cleaned for $400? They would probably never leave the neighborhood.
Right.
They would probably just go from house to house to house, making about $2,000 a day, and they would start back at the beginning of the neighborhood by the time they got finished.
Right.
And you'd walk out of there with a pickup and a ladder making $200,000 a year. Where's your excuse?
Right.
Tell me your excuse why you can't make a living. So here's what I think is the keys to it. A little bit of this is Dan Sullivan. One of Dan Sullivan's big keys is show up on time, do what you said, say please and thank you.
Right. Yeah.
How many people don't do
tough
that?
Stuff, right?
Okay. What is my next one? I will tell people that everything about my career and everything about my financial life changed at the moment. And let me qualify this. In therapy, we call something threshold. Threshold is when change happens.
Right.
Change happens when the human says there has to be change, it has to be now, and it has to be me. That's when the alcoholic stops drinking. That's when the dieter stops dieting. That's when the drug addict stops. That's when the wife leaves the abusive relationship. All of that happens.
Right.
My moment of threshold was the moment I realized that no failure in my life was the fault of someone else.
Right.
That, I'm the enemy. So I'm the one who did this.
Right.
And I realized even if I had a client who ripped me off and didn't pay me and caused all kinds of problems, I let him in my life.
What's my role, right?
I let him in my life. How did I not see the yellow flags? Forget the red flags. How didn't I see the yellow ones?
Right.
Because I convinced myself, I'll make this work. You already knew it was a problem. And you didn't listen to yourself because you wanted the money.
Right.
So the first one was I had to take into account it's me.
Yep.
The second one was you have to get up off the floor one more time than you get knocked on the floor.
Right.
I don't care how many times you get knocked down,
And
because
we're
how many
gonna
times you get knocked down doesn't matter.
Right.
It's just how many times you get up that matters.
Right.
And then here's the last one, and I think this is going to be the name of my next book.
Okay.
I think the name of my next book is going to be called Why Not Me?
I like it.
I hear people all the time, why me?
Right.
Why me? Why did I get cancer?
Right. The victim. Right.
Why did my husband leave me? Why did I get fired? Why, whatever.
Right.
Why not you? What makes you so special that you can't have cancer?
Right.
What makes you so special that you can't get a flat tire and get stuck on the side of the road? Or what makes you so special that you don't have to park all the way in the back of the parking lot because all the spots are filled?
Right.
Right?
Yep. I love it.
Now, there's a flip side to why not me. Once you realize that the world is not a world of why not, but the world is a world of why not me, all of a sudden it becomes, why not me become rich?
Right.
Why not me go do a deal that is beyond my ability?
Right.
Why not me dream of growing my company 10 times in the next 36 months?
Right.
Why not me decide I'm going to become an actress, an actor, I'm going to become a musician, I'm going to write books? Because we are the people who place all the limits on ourselves with our why me thinking.
Right. And our ego. Right.
I often tell people, so I grew up in a blue collar town, a very blue collar town. I would say, low middle income
Right.
to blue collar parents. My dad was a great guy. My dad was a plumber. That's blue collars you can get,
Right.
right? When I was 18, if I had have told anyone, if I had said to anyone, here's what I'm going to do when I get older, if I'd have given them the list of things I've done in my life and the things I've accomplished and the friends that I've made and the people I know and the way I live and the cars I drive and the homes I live in, they would have all either laughed me off as a lunatic or they would have accused me of using drugs,
Right.
or they would have recommended I go to some kind of nut house for a few months.
Right.
And guess what? I probably would have agreed with them. Because back then, I still had this why me mentality.
Right.
Once I learned I was the enemy, and once I learned that I wasn't special, I now learned, but I could be
Right.
if I allow myself to be.
I love it. I'm going to buy your new book. So how does someone get a hold of you or of Jekyll Hyde, your agency?
Well, I tell you what we will do. If you go to, so our agency website is jekyllhydelabs.com.
Okay.
And we also have a website which is Meet Mark Young. If you just want to know about me, it's meetmarkyoung.com. If you go to jekyllhydelabs.com, and if you go to the info if you go there and type in the name of this podcast,
Yep.
we'll give you a free copy of the book.
Awesome.
So you can either have an audio version, a digital version, or we'll send you a paperback copy of it.
Right.
Also, the easy way to get in touch with me is jekyllhydelabs.com or meetmarkyoung.com.
Love it. Cool. So before I ask my last question, any other things you want to share with other visionaries or questions you have for me? This has been very worthwhile.
So my comment would be, as entrepreneurs, we start off in a world of everybody telling us we're crazy.
Right.
Because you'd have to be crazy to give up a steady paycheck and go do something with no paycheck.
Right. And risk. Yeah.
So this is nuts. Why would you have a job?
Right.
Why would you give that up? First off, I want to remind people that there's very little in real job security. I can tell you how many friends that I've had for life that have now realized, have literally come to me and said, wow, you were right, as we got downsided out of our big companies and
Right.
our Fortune 500 companies right-sized my job,
Right.
so on and so forth. But where I'm going with this is, we start off in this world where people tell us you can't do it.
Yep.
And then you do. So then you go to the next thing. I'm going to take this up another step.
Right.
And I'm going to go from this being a part-time gig to it's a full-time gig. And you're crazy again. And you do it. And then you decide, I'm going to open up an office and I'm going to hire people.
Right.
Well, that's crazy, because now you're going to have other people depending on you for a paycheck. And you do it. And you're right again. Well, what happens is something which is a biases that humans have, which is called a frequency bias. The more often we see something, the more often we believe it's true.
Right.
This is how politicians get elected. I just keep running ads saying, Bob, are you still beating your wife? And if I keep saying that, people will believe that about you. And meanwhile, I keep saying how I'm a wonderful guy.
Right.
Once we start realizing people give us bad advice and I'm always right, we lose the ability to take advice from great who's in our life.
Right.
So this gets down to, again, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy's book, Who Not How.
Right.
As entrepreneurs, it's not important for us to know how to do anything. We need to know what needs to be done.
Right.
But learning how to do it will dramatically slow our process, because there are many things we need to learn how to do which could take 10,000 hours to master.
Right.
So, I need to learn accounting. All right, guess I'll take the next 3 years and learn how this goes.
Right.
You need to find the best who's in the world. And we always talk about there are who's and there are super who's. Where I'm going with this is, you need to spend the money on who's and spend money on getting the best who's you can get.
Right.
You need to get who's like Coach Bob.
Right.
You need to get who's like a great accountant, a great attorney. There's no such thing as cheap legal advice.
Right.
There is cheap legal advice, but there's no cheap good legal advice. You need to get the best who's you can afford, and you need to trust them. This does not mean you just hand over your life, like we talked about, not handing it over to a doctor. But you'd also be a fool if your doctor said, I just did a CAT scan of your brain and I see a tumor. You'd also be an idiot to say, well, I think I'm going to look at this myself. No, there's a scan right here. We can see this.
Right.
You need to bring those experts into your life, and you need to listen to them. You need to understand you don't know everything. Yes, I understand you've been told no 6 times so far, and you were right. But this is, odds are, as an entrepreneur, this is the biggest company you've ever run.
Right.
And tomorrow, this will be the biggest company you've ever run. So you need to get somebody who has seen things that you haven't seen yet, who can look around the corner for you.
Right.
And that's why they need people like you. That's why I need people like you.
Right. Well, it's interesting when people ask me a question, I'm like, oh, how can I solve it? And I often can't solve it, but I probably know someone who does. Yeah, so
that's what we call a super who.
Right. Love it.
One of the things that is so unique about our ad agency is we have a network of colleagues and collaborators in the world of consumer packaged goods that is so vast and bigger than anyone that when a client becomes a client here, we can introduce them to anyone that they need.
Right.
We need somebody our entire team's dysfunctional. Great. We're going to introduce you to US, or we're going to introduce you to Coach Bob.
Right.
Or our accounting is a mess. Great. We're going to introduce you to this accounting firm. Here's a patent lawyer. Here's an FDA lawyer. That's what makes it work, is we know how to be a super who. And you're a super who for a lot of people that use you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're a super who for me. I appreciate that. So my last question, the title of this podcast is Viva la Visionary. What does Viva la Visionary mean to you?
Well, of course, I can't help but go back to Elvis in Las Vegas. So I'm here in Viva la Visionary, baby. I mean, that's so I have to go back to Elvis.
Right.
But what I hear with Viva la Visionary is we need to celebrate the crazy people. Because we're the nutcases, we're the lunatics. We're the people who dream things that other people say is ridiculous.
Right.
And as Peter Diamandis says, every great invention was a stupid idea yesterday.
Right. Love it. Cool. Well, Mark, thank you for your time, your wisdom, and your friendship. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
This was fun. Thank you, Bob.
All right. Thank you. All right. That's it.